She raised her hands, chanting in her native tongue. The wind turned savage, knocking men from their horses. Thunder cracked though no rain fell. Eli fought beside her, his rifle roaring, his heart pounding. The men scattered into the night, terrified. When the dust settled, the fire had died down, and silence filled the valley once more. Eli dropped his gun and ran to Nita. She was trembling but smiling. "It's over," he whispered. She shook her head softly. "Not over. But safe for now." In the days that followed, more miracles happened. Neighbors who once shunned Eli came asking for help. His well never ran dry while theirs did. He shared water, feed, and kindness, saying only, "The land gives what the heart gives." People began to change. Even the sheriff tipped his hat next time he passed. One golden evening, as the sun bled across the hills, Eli built a small wooden cross beside the stream. "For your husband," he told Nita. "He should rest where life returned." Tears welled in her eyes. "He would like that." She touched his hand and whispered, "Now, you and I, no more buying, no more belonging. We walk same path." Eli smiled. Together. Months passed. The ranch thrived. Folks started calling it Healing Creek, saying the wind there sang different. Eli and Nita became legends whispered in saloons, how a poor rancher's last coin bought not a servant, but salvation. One evening, as the sky turned violet, Eli looked over his land and said, "I used to think this place was cursed." Nita smiled, placing her hand over his heart. "It was lonely. Now it's alive." He looked at her, his voice soft. "You changed my life." She looked into his eyes, her words like prayer. "No, Eli. We changed the land, and the land changed us." The last rays of sunset bathed the ranch in gold. The wind carried laughter again, and somewhere beyond the hills, the spirits of the old world smiled. And as the night fell over Healing Creek, Eli Carter knew one thing for certain. He hadn't bought an Apache widow. He'd found his soul's missing half. Clapperboard endnote/narration for channel outro. If you believe love can heal even the hardest land, then hit that subscribe button for more powerful Wild West stories like this. Every story hides a truth somewhere between the dust, the sorrow, and the stars. This is Best Wild West Stories. Subscribe now, partner. Next week's rain clouds began to form. The parched earth drank greedily when the first drops fell. The air smelled of hope. At night, Eli found himself sitting by her fire, listening to her hum old Apache songs. She told stories in fragments of her tribe, her lost husband, her people's spirits. Eli shared his own, of his father's death, his failures, his loneliness. For the first time in years, laughter returned to that land. But Dry Creek had its shadows. Word spread in town that Eli Carter had an Apache woman living with him. Men spat when he rode by. One night, his barn door was painted with red letters, "Savage Lover." Eli didn't care. When he saw Nita tending to the land like it was her child, something changed in him. He realized he hadn't bought her. He'd been saved by her. One evening, lightning struck near the north ridge, setting the dry brush ablaze. The fire roared toward the house. Eli tried to fight it, but the wind was too strong. He shouted for Nita and found her standing on the hill, singing into the flames. The fire bent, split, and swerved around their home as if guided by unseen hands. When the storm ended, half the valley was blackened, but Eli's land still stood. He looked at Nita with awe and whispered, "How did you do that?" She smiled faintly. Land listens when heart is true. For the first time in his life, Eli believed in something beyond sweat and work. He believed in her. That night, under the silver moon, he said softly, "You saved me, Nita. Not just my land, me." She looked up, her voice quiet. "Then we save each other." The winds of Dry Creek had finally changed. By summer, Dry Creek Ranch had bloomed like a miracle. Grass covered the once dead plains, calves were born healthy, and even the nearby stream ran fuller. Eli and Nita worked side by side, their bond deeper than words. They didn't call it love, but anyone who saw them knew it was something stronger. The people in town began to talk. Some with envy, others with hate. Sheriff Dunn came one afternoon, hat low over his eyes. "Eli," he said, "there's folks complainin'. They say you're keepin' an Indian woman like a wife. That ain't sittin' right with the town council." Eli squared his shoulders. "She's free. She works with me, not for me. Ain't no law against that." "Maybe not," the sheriff said, "but laws don't matter much when men start gatherin' with rifles." That night, Eli couldn't sleep. He saw Nita sitting by the fire, weaving something out of twine. "They coming?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Maybe." She smiled gently. "Then we stand." 2 nights later, it happened. A mob of 5 men rode in under moonlight, faces hidden, torches burning. "We don't want trouble, Carter," their leader shouted. "Send her out, and we'll go easy." Eli stepped out with his shotgun. "You'll have to go through me." A torch flew through the air, landing on the porch. Fire spread fast. Nita ran from the barn, her eyes fierce, her hair flying in the wind. The wind never stopped in Dry Creek Valley. It carried the dust, the whispers, and the weight of old sins. For 12 years, Eli Carter had worked the same stretch of dying land his father left behind, a ranch so poor the vultures didn't bother circling anymore. The cattle were skin and bone, the fences broken, the well half dry. Yet, every morning, Eli saddled his old horse, Ridge, and told himself one more season might change his luck. Folks in town said he was a fool, a dreamer holding on to a dying patch of dirt. But Eli had made a promise to his dead mother: don't ever sell the Carter land, no matter how bad it gets. So, he stayed. Then came the spring of 1889, hotter, meaner, and emptier than any before. The drought had killed most of his herd. He was behind on taxes and 1 letter away from losing the ranch. One night, as he sat in the dim light of his oil lamp, reading the last notice from the county office, a voice called from the road. It was Jed Barker, a trader who traveled between Fort Bowie and the border towns. He carried a wagon full of supplies, and sometimes people. That night, he brought something strange. "Got a woman here," Jed said, his voice low. "An Apache widow. Her husband was killed near the Salt River. Army wants her gone from the fort. They're lettin' folks buy them for work, cheap labor. She can cook, mend, herd, whatever you need. You interested?" Eli frowned. He didn't like the idea of buying a person. But he looked at the dry fields, the half-empty barn, and the thought of another month alone nearly broke him. "How much?" he asked quiet. It was nearly all the money he had left. Still, something in him said yes. Maybe it was loneliness. Maybe desperation. Or maybe something unseen guiding his hand. He paid the coins, and Jed helped the woman down from the wagon. She was small, with dark eyes and a calm that didn't belong to this harsh world. Her clothes were worn, her hair braided tightly. She didn't speak English, just 'bout H. Eli nodded awkwardly. "You can stay in the bunkhouse," he muttered. "Work what you can. You'll get food, water, and shelter. Fair?" She didn't answer, but her eyes held something: dignity, strength. He led her to the small cabin beside the barn. That night, he lay awake, listening to the creak of the windmill and wondering if he'd done right. Days turned to weeks. Nita worked silently, fixing fences, mending his torn shirts, tending to the few remaining cattle. She moved like the wind, quiet but powerful. The ranch, for the first time in years, began to breathe again. Eli noticed the changes in small things: the fences stood straight, the barn was swept, the well pump oiled and working smoother. One morning, he saw smoke rising from the east pasture. Running there, he found Nita kneeling beside a small fire, burning herbs over the old dry soil. She looked at him, her English broken but clear. "Land, sick. I heal." Eli wanted to laugh, but something in her eyes stopped him. "Over the